Hello again, travelers, and welcome back to the second episode of my podcast here as my final project submission for SERP 200 for the fall 2025 semester. If you're here, that likely means that you've at least listened to a portion of the prior episode in this two-episode series of this podcast, because there's a lot of stuff that gets covered in the last episode that would be much to your benefit for you to be at least aware of in order to enjoy this episode to its fullest extent. But given that that has occurred, my name is Josh McCune, and I am joined once again by my colleague and friend Reid.
Hello. It's good to see everyone. Well, good to see at least my friend here, the host. But to anyone else who's listening, it's good to know that you're listening again.
Indeed, welcome back. So, um, in the first episode, a lot of stuff just about the concepts of the course that I'm in got discussed. And so the main point of the episode today is to do a hands-on demonstration. So Reid and I have drafted up a couple of characters. I've made a little bit of a plot, and so him and I are just going to show what it's like being at the table. We've tried to make this as palatable as possible because I know that many people who are coming in and listening today may not exactly be familiar with the every in and out related to playing D&D, but um, we'll give a sample recap for where we're at. So this is like what would happen at the beginning of most sessions. So he and I are going to pretend like we are joining into a session that has already had a couple of prior sessions before it. So with that recap, the plot line is Reid and I, and Reid, remind me, your character's name is?
Yes, my character's name is Arcel. That's Arcel.
Perfect. And then my character's name is Arbor, like tree. So Arcel and Arbor, how fun, they alliterate. So
Oh, they
Arcel,
do. That's nice.
right? Um, so Arcel and Arbor are a pair of travelers, Arcel a paladin and myself a rogue, and we came across a woman whose name is Maridel. Now, Maridel, she is an elven woman who, for a long time now, has been without control of her physical body. For whatever reason, she did not choose to disclose to the party. She informed us that she merely does not have control over her body, and so she strictly communicates via telepathic communication and utilizes body doubles and simulacra to do her bidding. And in order to preserve her body and maintain her life, what she has done is she has fused herself with her home. She lives in a very large tree, and she, before she lost full control of her body, combined herself with the roots of the tree to preserve her life. Now, she still is not able to move, but she is able to utilize her simulacra and telepathic communication to carry on with her business like she did once she had control of her body. However, Maridel was not a woman who was without love. She married a man a long while ago, and his name was Marcus. And Marcus and Maridel lived very happily with one another for a long period. Unfortunately, she once again was not willing to share the exact details with the party. It seemed like a very sensitive subject for her. All the more emotionally charged because she has revealed to Arcel and myself that Marcus has made a switch to the bad. And what he has done is he has learned the dark ways of the arcane arts and has started to use it for ulterior purposes, including his most recent bout of utilizing his magic, where he has decided to cast perpetual magic darkness around the tree that Maridel has infused herself with. So what he is doing is he is slowly killing her by preventing her tree from being able to photosynthesize. So what Maridel has tasked Arcel and me to do is to find Marcus and have him lift the curse that he has put on her tree so that way she does not die. And she has specifically requested that we try our best to preserve Marcus's life, because although they may no longer be lovers, Maridel cannot bring herself to say that she wants to see Marcus dead. So, with
All
that,
right.
that is our plotline background to where we find ourselves presently. Now, over the past couple of sessions, we have traversed through and found where Marcus has hidden himself. Marcus lives in a very dark cave that is in the side of a mountain that is adjacent to the grotto in which Maridel's tree is situated in. So Marcus, upon separating from Maridel, made his way up this mountain and has secluded himself in this cave. The cave is very long, very dark, very hard to traverse, but we have finally, after a great deal of difficulty, gotten our way all the way to the end of this cave, and we stand before a very large, unusually ornate door compared to the rest of the scenery within the cave, and we hear faint mumbling coming from the other side of the door, and that is where we left off. So, this is where we shall pick up.
All right. All right. So we are in front of this door. I would imagine your character, Arbor here, probably would have some thieves' tools on him, right? So maybe my character's a little bit tankier. So how about Arcel goes up with Arbor behind him, tries the door, and if it's locked, we'll see if Arbor can lockpick it. How does that sound?
That sounds like a good idea to me. Alright, so why don't you go ahead and
Perfect.
try the lock or try the door?
Of course. Let's go ahead and mention this ahead of time. My character is a mounted combatant. That means he rides sort of like a spectral horse. There's a feature that allows him to summon one, and it stays for described amount of time. I think it's like till it died dispelled or whatever. So he dismounts his horse and he puts his lance and his shield. Sort of like he holsters them to leave his hands free, and while keeping a close eye out, he walks up and he tries the door.
Okay. Arriving at the door, you try to push or pull on the door to see if it has any give to it. The door, upon being pushed, does have a little bit of give, but eventually it stops before it can be opened a great deal. And though you cannot see it, you can hear a distinctive metal rattling sound that happens whenever you push on the door.
Hmm. Well, I think Arcel would notice it, look back, and sort of motion for Arbor to sort of get the door open.
Okay.
Says like motions over and says, oh, "Looks like this is where you come into play."
Yep. And then my character, his species is wood elf, and so elves have a certain level of dark vision. They don't have full vision in the dark, but they are able to see more than certain other species. So I go up to the door, and what I can see through the little crack that gets made is a couple of metal linkages that are looped together to form a chain that has seemed to obscure the door or prevent the door from opening. And if there is any lock present, it is on the interior side of the door where I do not have any access to it.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Well, what I could do is remind me, your character is not a spellcaster, correct?
Indeed, he is not.
Okay. Well, what I could do is I could let me see here. I'm not too great with thieves' tools, but what I could do is I could cast the spell. It's a second level spell. It's called Misty Step. It allows me to teleport to an unoccupied space with a maximum range of 30 feet. So, and my character is a human. He does not have this dark vision. So he would probably reach into his pack, strike up a torch to give him some light. Probably would notice the chain too through the crack, and he's not too terribly perceptive, so I think he would probably just go ahead and do that. So
Perfect.
he mutters something in an arcane language, and this golden light envelops him before it collapses into one point. On the other side, a single point of yellow light sort of like grows into him essentially, and he is now on the other side of this door. What does he see on the other side of this door?
On the other side of the door, what you see is very minimal. What you can tell is that you are on a platform that has what looks like two ramps on either side that lead down into darkness that you cannot see beyond. It looks like a black wall has been set up in front of these ramps, and you cannot see beyond them. And then with the door, what you notice is a very crude padlock has been put between two of the chain linkages to hold this chain together and prevent the door from opening.
I think Arcel is going to draw his sword and just strike the chain.
Okay, go ahead and do a not athletics. Yes, an athletics check for me.
Sure thing. That's an athletics. 14?
A 14. All right, and you said you drew your sword for this?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Arcel draws his sword and swings at the padlock with a mighty swing, and the padlock, being a fair bit rusted out from the relative humidity and moisture within the cave, gives way whenever it is struck by the sword and falls down. The chain is now no longer in a continuous loop and can be removed from the door.
Awesome. He removes the chain and now pulls the door towards him to open it.
Perfect. You begin pulling on the door, and I, as in Arbor, make my way through the threshold. After pulling on the door for a little bit, to give me enough room to go through, you stop pulling, but the doors continue to move on their own and swing all the way open. Whenever they make their way into a little recess that causes them to lower a bit on the edge, two very bright white lamps that were on either side, or not lamps, but sconces, I guess, that are on either end of the door threshold, light up suddenly. You are sent aback by the sudden increase in the room's brightness, almost stumbling and falling, but you maintain your footing, and whenever your eyes adjust to the new light level, you can see that the black walls have faded, and you see the ramps go down a fair while to a smaller threshold on the opposite end of the lower part of this, I guess, tower is what it looks like now that you find yourselves at the top of.
All right. Marcel just kind of nods a little bit and sheathes his blade, mounts up his horse, and sensing that there might be some trouble up ahead, he reaches behind his back, equips his lance, and equips a relatively medium-sized shield with a very ornate holy symbol carved onto it, and gives a nod to Arbor to see if they're ready to head out.
Yep, I think we're ready to go. And at this moment, I also elect to draw my weapon. I choose to draw my bow and pull an arrow from my quiver and preemptively put it inside of my bow to have it at the ready. With that,
Perfect.
the party then descends down the ramp and makes their way to the other threshold in the lower part of this tower. Peering through the threshold, you can't see much because this room, while it is lit by a couple of very faint sconces throughout the room, you really can't see much. All you can see is that you are about to enter a very tall room that isn't necessarily large in size. You can see that it's circular in shape based on the appearance of the sconces that line the edge of the room, but you cannot tell what is inside the room or exactly how large it is. You just know that it is very tall.
Right. Is the lighting changed much? Like, is it any brighter, any darker?
From where you stand, the only sconces that were lit were the ones that were up at the top of the tower, and so those ones were able to cast a fair amount of light through the room that you were in, but it seems that this tower has been designed in a very specific way that doesn't allow any light to traverse through the threshold. So the only light that you can see are from the sconces that are on the room that you're looking into.
All right. Well, I guess we just continue to the next room then, right?
Okay. So the party then walks through this
Mhm.
next threshold and into the room. Turning back and looking before you, you see that the sconces in the prior room seem to have gone out because the threshold has gone completely black and you cannot see through it. At this same moment, the sconces that line the wall that you are now in all turn their brightness up a little bit. Not a lot, but just enough for you to see a man who sits in a chair stationed at the center of this circular room. This chair is positioned atop nothing but a old ornate rug, and next to him, or next to this chair, is a small end table that holds a lamp that does not appear to be functional, and a man sits in this chair before you. He does not seem to acknowledge you.
Hmm. Did we have a description of what Marcus, right? That's the guy we're looking for. Did we have a physical description of him? Like, did our quest giver? I'm so sorry, I forgot her name, but did she tell us what he looked like? And does he match the description?
Yes, so Maridel, she did not want to give too many details about Marcus. Again, it seemed that she was very pained to talk about him, but she did describe him as a feeble man of relatively normal stature from as she remembered, and he had medium length brunette hair and piercing green eyes is the best detail she could remember. Now, the man that stands before you does also have brunette hair, but his eyes are closed.
Um, I think um ourselves probably just going to move forward a little bit, but still stay kind of back with Arbor, more so to make sure that he's all right as well. And I think he'll just like loudly clear his throat.
Okay. All right. So with that, Arcel makes his way up and loudly clears his throat, to which the sconces on the edges of the room suddenly go out entirely, and the room is cast into complete darkness. At that same moment, then all that Arcel can see in front of him are two green circles, and you hear a man speak. I see you have found my home. Tell me, one, why are you here?
Marcel sighs a little bit, still trying to squint his eyes to get a look at what he can in this sort of, I would assume, magical darkness, and he just, look, I understand that you probably don't like the intrusion, but I have to ask, do you know Maribel? Does that name ring any bells to you?
Hmm. You can hear what is the audio equivalent of a very pained expression from the man. His eyes, which you presume to be the two spheres or the two circles that you see, close and open in a very blinking manner. They disappear for a while as he lets out this groan. To whom may it concern whether or not I know this Maridel?
Well, if you do know her, then I presume you are Marcus. And if that's the case, then she has sent us and to you need to drop this curse, this magical darkness. I don't know why you have chosen to fall to the ways of evil. Honestly, the reasonings don't really all that matter all that much to me. What I do know, and what does matter to me, is that you are threatening your your lovers, you're someone who cares about you. You're threatening their life. This darkness you're spreading on her is killing her, Marcus.
And who are you to presume that you have the right party in the first place? An intruder you may be, but also quite the rude one. I may be an enjoyer of darkness here in my cave, but I have made that my own. I sought this cave out merely to bask in the darkness for myself. While I do know of Maridel's existence, it is quite the bold assumption for you to come into my own place of residence, based on the assumption that because I am an enjoyer of the pristine darkness, that I were to extend such a privilege to Maridel. It is
She
at this moment that Arbor, with his background and wisdom, I am going to do a perception check to see his intentions on that.
what do you get?
I got, excuse me, I got a 14.
Let me see if I have anything to boost that number real quick. Give me just a second. Mm, Ah, 1 minute. There's a spell that I have. It's called Bless, and I want to see if it's only saving throws and attack rolls. Okay. I don't really think I could. My character can help much. So yeah, 14 it is.
Okay. Um, so with that 14, I'm not able to pick up a lot on his specific intentions necessarily, but I do have my limited dark vision, and what I'm able to see is that he has gotten up from his chair, but he has a very apprehensive pose, almost as if he's trying
Hmm.
to flee.
Hmm. Okay. Arcel, assuming that Arbor relays his information to Arcel, Arcel sort of reins his horse back a little bit to not come on too strong. And he just takes a moment. Look, we were told that this Marcus individual has green eyes. Those are some very striking green eyes you have. You match his description almost one for one. You may not think your darkness is affecting her, but it is. And I don't want to hurt you. Neither does neither does my companion here. Marcus, we just want to help you. Why do you feel the need to bathe yourself in the absence of light?
The silence is cutting. All you see are just two eyes staring at you, and all you can see is that, weirdly enough, they just seem to get slightly closer together and closer together
Hmm.
and closer together. They're parallaxing. To which at this point, I, with my dark vision, notice that he has been receding this entire time, and I convey this to Arcel. Arcel, he's trying to flee.
And then Arcel sighs heavily, and if this Marcus person is within 60 feet of him, Arcel is going to cast Hold Person.
Okay. Go ahead and cast it.
Yeah, sure. That is a Marcus. Assuming this is him, will have to make a wisdom saving throw. The number he has to beat is 15.
15. Okay. He has failed the check.
All right. In this case, he is paralyzed. Um, he can make another save at the start of each of at the on his next turn. So if you have to enter initiative, in which case, and on next turn he can try it again to see if he breaks out of that. If he fails all his saves for all his turns, he's only paralyzed for 1 minute. So Arcel holds his hand up, and just speaks out in sort of a booming voice. Not yet. And sort of like golden aura just pulses out from his hand, and I would imagine these spectral chains kind of like form all over Marcus's body and just holds him in place completely.
All right. So as you cast that spell and the chains begin to wrap around his limbs, they, though he has tried to run, he has, since with the chains being wrapped around him, has been tripped and has fallen onto the floor and is rendered unable to move. He sounds very pained from the chains, and he merely says, "You have the wrong person." I will take this moment
Um,
to join
okay.
you and stand beside you.
Yeah. Arcel gets rides up his steed to get close, dismounts, pops his weapon, but maintains the hold on his shield. And at the mention of this being the wrong person, I'm going to roll an insight check. Could I receive the help action from your character because I have a pretty low insight?
Yes.
That would just give me advantage on the roll, so I have a better chance of beating whatever DC you may set for that. Basically, I'm looking for just again any signs that there might be more to the story, and with your help action, that is a 12.
Okay, and that's your with advantage.
Hmm.
Okay. Though a certain level of doubt from the result of your background may still reign in your head that maybe this is the wrong person and you are doing the wrong thing here, the simple fact that a man of brown hair and piercing green eyes that pervade through the darkness stands here with a level of apprehension that is only seen by liars. There's no way. This has to be Marcus. He's lying through his teeth.
All right, so Ursel gets a bit closer, sort of kneels down next to him. Is just Marcus. Lying will not get you anywhere. Please, don't make this harder than it has to be.
We don't know your
Just
motives. We don't. We don't know why you're doing this. And frankly, it's not our concern. We are just here because Maridel is going to die if you continue what you're doing. She told us specifically she does not want us to kill you. You can escape with your life, Marcus. You just need to listen to us. At this moment, I am going to perform a persuasion check to try and convince him to lift the curse. And I'm hoping that my reasoning will aid him in understanding that he needs to come peacefully or he is to die. And
I will give you help action from what I just said earlier. That just gives you advantage on that. So that's take two d20 and take the higher of the two.
well, one of them was a nat one, so
Ooh. Ugh.
so we're not gonna do that. Uh, I rolled a 15.
Okay.
He seems to stop his struggling, as feeble as it may be, to consider the wording I have said to him for a brief moment. But beyond that, he merely says, I don't care what you think. This darkness is more important than anyone could ever realize. Ah. And he begins coughing through his speech as the chains continue to hold him in place. Maridel need not be concerned with my darkness. She is misguided. He then coughs
No.
up a little bit of blood.
Oh,
It seems that Marcus is a
Marcus.
lot more feeble than even Maridel led us to believe.
Marcus, you're sick, unwell, physically unwell. Please, my church is welcoming to all. As long as you are willing to seek some redemption here, you are still able to save yourself here. If you just cease this at once and allow and I will forgive you. I will make sure my monastery can give you the best care possible. We will get you well, but you have to stop this now. And at this point, he will redraw his lance and point it sort of at Marcus, and he's like, "But right now, you are threatening the lives of innocents, and I cannot stand for that. Yield, or I will be forced to take action."
And he attempted to break free from the chains once again. He rolls 7 and fails the check.
Hmm.
It is at this moment that he goes limp.
Um, he Marcel just sighs, puts back his lance, and he's gonna. I don't know if this would be medicine or not, but he's gonna basically make sure Marcus is still alive.
Okay, and how do you verify this?
um, Thinking maybe a medicine check.
Okay,
If not, then maybe a perception check.
you can do medicine. It's whatever your preference is. I'll let you choose.
I'll do perception then, because that's higher.
Great.
Ooh, that's a 6.
Okay. Um, the darkness of the room prevents you from being able to see anything or have any visual cues, and the if this man is dead from the grip of your chains, then not nearly enough time has set in for any of the signs of death to occur. His body's still warm, it is still limp, so as far as you can tell, there is a potentially dead man in front of you.
Marcel says again, and he's gonna take out his rope. And he, with the assistance of his sword, to as a blade, is gonna cut a few lengths off and is going to bind his arms and legs to provide like an actual physical restraint. And then he is going to attempt to lift up Marcus. I have a carrying capacity of I mean my strength set is 18. I'm sure he's probably not too heavy, and is going to lift him up and affix him to the back of his horse, um, and sort of look back to Arburns like, oh, we should probably return him, but do you think there's more to this place?
I would envision probably not. This place is nothing more than ugh, damp. I would love to leave.
Yes. Yes, let's do it at once. I'm hoping he's going to change his ways. My mercy is very thin at this moment, so let's make this quick. Yeah. To which he will store all his weapons, still have his shield drawn for protection's sake, and is going to mount his steed and basically give a motion it to move a little bit faster on the way out.
Okay. Do you have room on your horse for me to ride as well?
Um, let's see. My otherworldly steed is a large creature, and I believe large creatures can hold two medium creatures. So if it wants to carry a third, it's either it can't happen at all, or it would reduce the amount that my horse can move. So I'm thinking your DM here. I can leave that up to your judgment.
We'll just say for flavor that it works. Your horse becomes a
Sure.
pack mule temporarily and carries the three of us outside of the cave. We're not in battle
All right.
anymore, so we are fine.
Perfect.
Okay. So our party elects to do that. We go back the way we came, and we travel back through all of the chambers and rooms that we had to traverse to get to this last chamber. And once we get back to the entrance of the cave, reminding that there is a large overhang that is the entry area to the cave. Um, so it's like a big rock formation where there is a little area underneath a rock that the entrance to the cave sits in, where it is obscured from the elements. And it is once we exit the cave that Marcus regains his consciousness. He is not dead. Rather, he was just rendered unconscious as a result of the chains around him. But once he awakens and sees where he is, he has a very sudden change of tune. Wait, wait, wait! Just as you get to the threshold to where the high noon sunlight casts down the side of the mountain, he begins to plead very strongly towards you all. Do not have this horse move a step further. Listen.
You may speak.
Through very
And
heavy breathing, suddenly he agrees. I will lift the curse from Meridel. I will do it. Free me from these restraints, and I will do it. But
lift
you
the
may.
curse first, and then I will free you.
I need my hands to do it.
Marcel sighs, gets off his horse, and sort of like still, not like manhandling, but a little bit more roughly handling Marcus off the horse, holds him very close to his face, and he says, "If you attempt anything, I will make sure you regret that decision. Am I understood?"
Yes, he says. And I, at this moment, will get into a formation where you and I are in the flank to him. So should he flee, we'll have advantage in the event of an attack needing to occur.
Perfect. With the shield still fashioned, Arcel nods, moves him around behind his back, and draws his blade, cuts his hands free while still leaving his arms restrained, and sort of like has his hand, and Arcel has his hand wrapped around the back of Marcus's shirt, with the hand that has the shield on it, and has his sword in the other in his offhand, and he's just like, "Go, do it."
And I will draw my bow and have it drawn and ready to release an arrow straight through Marcus's head should he attempt to flee.
Okay.
Marcus is unimpressed by our display, but nevertheless continues with the spell. He says some phrasing in an arcane language that is foreign to the both of us, and a black aura emanates from his hands. After a period of time, the aura fades from his hands and he falls to the ground. What you notice is that the interior of the cave has gotten a lot brighter, and you can see much further down it compared to the last time that you had to go to the entrance to this cave. Walking around the side of the rock formation and peering down the side of the mountain, you see that the perpetual darkness that has been cast on the grotto below seems to have been lifted, as from the perspective noticed a minute ago, once you first entered the cave, the fog that was descended upon the grotto has since lifted.
See, that wasn't so hard. Now, are we going to have any more issues from you?
No. Untie my leg so I can get out of this wretched sunlight.
Marcel abides and sort of like shoves him away a little bit. If you ever do this ever again, you can answer to the full wrath of my church. Good day to you.
I presume you cut the string to his leg restraints?
Yeah, cut the rope, collect the scraps, sheathe my blade, mount my horse.
Great. And as you cut him free, he slowly climbs up to his 2 feet and hobbles back to the interior of his cave.
Let's get out of here.
Agreed. And hey, we actually have room for me this time on your horse.
Yes, yes. We should really pick one up for you. Maybe in the next town over. I saved up some gold pieces.
Wouldn't be a half bad idea with all the traveling we've been doing. But for now,
That
let
much
us
is
return to
true.
Maritel.
Yes, and I hope Marcus comes to his senses, but I do not really favor his behavior.
Hopefully, we were able to convince him sufficiently that, whatever his reasoning may be, he shall not interfere with Maritel for the future. I wouldn't want to have to come back to this
Agreed.
wretched place.
Agreed. Marcel lightly kicks the side of his horse and takes off.
And so with that, Arcel and Arbor on horseback ride back down the side of the mountain and return to the grotto containing the tree of Maridel. You stand before the tree, and immediately what you notice is that a couple of pink cherry blossoms, or not cherry blossoms, those are trees of their own. A couple of pink fruits. There we go. Pink fruits. A couple of pink fruits have begun to grow from the canopy of this tree. It seems to be doing in much better condition compared to how you first found it. The roots then adjust their way around and make an entrance into the tree for you to ascend into.
Maridel, we have returned.
A light green spectral figure appears slowly from the uh, the ether beyond and stands before you. The last time you saw one of these spectral figures, it was hunched over and seemed to have been very sickly. The one that stands before you now has normal posture and stands before you merely smiling. Though its mouth does not move, it says, "Thank you. Once again, my roots can breathe, and the sun shines upon my leaves. You have done great work, travelers. Please tell me, did you have to kill him?"
No, he was well convinced. We didn't have to draw blade or break skin whatsoever. I did cause him to trip once, and he did cough up a little bit of blood, but I think he was already a very sick man before our intervention. We moved him towards the exit of his very dark cave, and he was very willing to comply after we realized that we were serious. We may have roughed him up a bit and spooked him, but I assure you he's alive and mostly well.
She does not say anything to this, but what you do notice is that a couple more of the simulacras of hers arise from the ether. They all smile, they then bow and disappear to the very faint sound of "thank you" as they fade. At the same moment, a couple of roots on the opposite end of this room open up, and a room before you opens.
Arcel dismounts his horse, straightens up his armor a bit, and enters.
Within the room is a large trunk. Not a tree trunk, but a trunk as in a chest.
Hmm.
It is very ornately carved and seems to be made out of the same roots of the tree. As you approach, it opens, and on the interior are a large pile of gold pieces, silver pieces, and gemstones.
Thank you. And he divides the riches equally between himself and Arbor.
Perfect. All right. So for each of us, for this quest of ours, we have each gotten 100 gold pieces, 250 silver pieces, and we each got a small bag of precious gemstones.
Yay! All right. After
And
the riches are collected, Arcel promptly exits the room as to not overstay.
yep, I follow in tow. As we leave, the chest closes, the roots reclose, and we exit the tree to continue on.
All right.
Okay. Very exciting. So yes.
That was nice.
Yep, so as you can see, not necessarily the most complicated things that's ever happened at a D&D table before, but this is kind of the gist of what it's like being at the table, and things get more fun and crazy as you add more people to it. But um, it was a fun story to write and to play through. It's definitely one that I'll have to flesh out a little bit more, and I'll probably incorporate into the future as a DM. But uh, as you can see, for those in the audience, I took a couple of specific creative methods and actions that were designed to incorporate disability into this narrative in a way that is not what has been the societal standard for disability representation within media. So, as you may or may not recall, Reid, it's for us, it's been a week since we recorded that last episode, but as a
Correct.
refresher, one of the biggest takeaways from the first episode in this series is that I am with the opinion of many members of the disabled community that those who do not have a given disability in creative contexts shouldn't necessarily try and portray that disability. Now, that statement in and of itself doesn't necessarily give my full opinion on it. Um, it's a more intricate endeavor, but whenever it comes to things like, say, a director for a film wants to include a character with some type of disability, I think that the actor that plays that character whenever they are cast should have that disability because only an actor with that disability has the true lived experience and would be best suited for the role. And that's contrasted with what is most common in Hollywood, where that is not something that is considered, and typically people who do not have disabilities are often designed to play or are often given roles of disabled characters. And it's situations like that where I agree that non-disabled people or people who have different disabilities from what is attempting to be represented are not the best suited to those portrayals. However, I also believe that disability representation is important in the arts and it happens through active inclusion. So with a medium like D&D, where we talked about making disabled characters, player characters anyways, and we came to the conclusion that that can be a relatively straightforward process. You just have to make the decision whether or not you want to realize that disability or whether or not you want it to be just for flavor. That's up to the player's discretion. And then for certain things where it may be a more overarching thing for a character, it's just best to check in with your table and make sure that everyone who is a part of your group has the ability and willingness to engage with your needs and desires as a player, because that's just part of the mutual dynamic at the table. Um, to which we argue that, any player in DM who's worth their weight would be willing to do that, to at least give it a try. But um, whenever it comes to DMs and making stories, I argue that it is very important for us to include disabled characters in our stories, where we DMs, we typically voice and play all of our NPC characters. Um, so I argue that there are probably some disabilities that I should not represent as a person who does not identify as having certain disabilities, but you'll notice that though you have minimal background to this session, as we just kind of threw you all into it just to show you the action and give you a demonstration. We didn't want to be here. We didn't want this to be like a 6-hour podcast, so we just decided to truncate the plot down just a smidge. As
Yeah.
Reid and I know very intimately, we take our time at the table, so we didn't want to
Yeah.
bore you to tears
Yeah,
too
we're not
much.
we're not a we're not critical role over here. We're just two guys.
Right. But with um the information that you do know, though the reasoning behind it and the exact details are unknown, Maridel is a disabled character, and she has some form of paralysis, and her body is she is not able to control her body. So what she has done is she has, in the world of D&D, has made her life accessible, where she has given her body protection. She has her simulacra that she utilizes to do the tasks that she would do otherwise if she had control over her body, and she's able to communicate with people normally just via telepathic communication. So she is an instance of a disabled character, and I very specifically chose to make the villain of this plotline not necessarily disabled. And one could actually argue, since the way that it panned out for us, we actually got to demonstrate it. I was very appreciative for how Reid played this, even though he didn't know. Um, Bringing Marcus out to the sunlight, the reason why Marcus made a switch to the darkness is unknown, but that darkness and his infatuation with it has made him very sensitive to the light, and he evades it at all costs. So when we were going to take him into the sunlight, he very well could have died if he got exposed to that direct sunlight. And he knew that, knew the dangers, and knew we had the capacity to kill him. So then he was able to yield in that very important moment. So one could even portray that right there as a disability, since he inherited photosensitivity as a consequence of what he has done. But I did not make it an inherent part of his background. It's not like he was born with photosensitivity and then he decided that he was going to bring darkness to everyone. No. Rather, that instance of disability there is just a consequence of his actions.
You know, you're messing with dark magic. There's gonna be some side effects that you take on as a result of that.
Exactly. So, as for anything inherent to him, I had decided that nothing about Marcus inherently is going to be evil as a consequence of a disability. And I think that that's very important. This plot line here, it's definitely flipped the roles, where a disabled character is typically the one who is the villain in a plot line. It would be a lot easier to write this and get emotional impact from, say, switching their roles and having, Marcus be a character who is like his tree house that he lives in has been cast into darkness by Maridel, and though he wouldn't die because he is um not disabled and he has not infused himself into the tree, he would give us the quest, say, just to prevent his house from dying, and then we would have to go to Maridel, and then she would use her simulacra against us and communicate telepathically with us to work against us, and it would be a lot easier and conventional with our societal expectations around disability in media to write the plot line around Maridel being the villain. But what this plot line serves to show is that it's not hard to write disabled characters in neutral ways and have them exist in ways where accessibility is something that they have, they can exist, they can thrive, and while this is a very simple plot line, it does show a little bit of disability justice. I mean, it's if we were to say that this is an instance of, this is disability justice, this is rather like taking a frying pan to your face and being like, this is justice for the disabled, and just like beating you over the face with it multiple times. Like it's very straightforward, but hopefully what this little plot line here shows is that it is very much so a possibility, and I am not a person that identifies as disabled. So it's possible to write disabled characters in ways that do not belittle the disabled community, do not work against the goals of the disabled community, and actually work to show active inclusion and depiction of disability. So I'm doing my part, even not as a member of the disabled community, to incorporate disability into the great human zeitgeist and get that discussion going in a setting where, as we mentioned in the first episode, it isn't really mentioned that much. Beyond characterization, disability isn't really something that many people actively think about at the D&D table.
Exactly. I mean, like the whole darkness hurting the tree thing, we could have easily made Maridel like a dryad or like an awakened tree or something like that, but we or not we, you're the one who made her. You chose to not do that. Have it
Exactly.
be
So,
uh and a creative realization of what a disabled person would, you know, like how they would try to grow around it in a world where magic exists.
right. So, with this couple of episodes that you have taken the time to come in and consume, my main thing that I just want to show you is, first of all, play D&D. It's fun. It's a little bit weird every once in a
Yes.
while, but that's what makes it fun. Um, and this is a really simple demonstration here. D&D can get a lot more intricate, complicated, can get simpler. It's all up to you. So play D&D. It's fun, and just be aware that at the table it is fully possible to include disability representation, even if you are not a person who identifies with any given disability. It's very much so possible to include that in your stories, in your characters, at the table. And I argue it's very important for all of us in the world of D&D. And I'm not saying that we have to make all of our characters disabled just willy-nilly, but there is real value to including disabled characters because that's how we get active representation in our stories. And the only way to further disability representation is to represent it. And we all share that responsibility, whether or not we identify as disabled. So, if and when you go to the table next, maybe just think a little bit about how you can include disability. Take this time that you've taken with us as a little bit of a reference. This is just one of, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands and millions and billions of ways that you could incorporate disability into your characters and stories. So get creative with it, but also be aware that this is a responsibility that we all share. And just think about when you go to include disabled characters in your stories, think about what you're trying to convey, think about your intentions, and think about how your art could be interpreted. Because with stuff like this, I have my intentions for how this story went, but you may have interpreted it in a completely different way. And the unfortunate thing for me is my art and my storytelling is only effective as its interpretation from the audience. So think actively about how your stories and artworks can be interpreted. But with that, it's much better to go out there and try and incorporate this very important topic of
Sorry
uh,
about that, folks. Sorry about that, folks. My PC randomly decided to disconnect me. I'm so sorry about that.
oh no, you're fine. Um, yeah, technology, it's great. But yeah, just think a little bit about your artworks and try and be a little bit more proactive about including disability into your narratives because that is the responsibility that we all share. But again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the second episode of the podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm with my colleague Reid, and this has
Mm.
been my final project submission for SERP 200 for the fall 2025 semester.